In this video I'm going to take you through a run through of my Quintrex F390 Outback Explorer and all the modifications I've done to it. And I'll start with the motor. One of the first Tohatsu MFS30Ds, the 2022 model, to come into Australia, and I have actually changed it to a stainless prop of the same pitch. The reason being, even during motor running and at 3/4 throttle, I was hitting maximum rev. The new stainless prop, I'm reaching 27 knots, so 50 kilometers an hour. You see the transponder there for HDS Live 7-inch. It took a little setting up to get it at exactly the right height, but now with the transponder in that position, I'm able to read bottom at 20 knots. I use Railblaza gunnel mounts and Railblaza mountings everywhere, and when I want it out of the way is actually, because of the hard stays that I'm using at the back, move it into the back position, and that keeps it well out of the way. When I do want to use it, I move it forward onto these Railblaza mounts further up where it's in a more normal position. And the beauty about these Railblaza gunnel mounts, sit in the socket on these Quintrexes, and I can move this fore and aft if I really want to. There's no drilling into the gunnel of the boat, even if I want to change it over time. Some final points on the outside. Put in the LED navigation lights, and these, very slim profile, out of the waterline, and it'll work very well for night. I actually changed the standard rod holders that were here, made an aluminium plate up and put in the Railblaza mountings, because I use these for a number of different capabilities, including lights, rod holders and the like. The watersnake GPS nav sensor, geospot trolling motor up the front. That means I get a lot more accurate anchor modes, but also the ability to jog left and right when in anchor mode. So I can move forward or backwards, left and right in meter increments while I'm still in anchor mode spot. So it's great for getting really accurate on the bottom. I've made a bit of a monster rod holder out of a cheap one from Kmart in Australia with a few PVC pipes on as well. I did try some other methods of carrying rods initially, so again, Railblaza rod holders there, and I could get 4 rods on, but it was a real muck around to get them in there, and so I expect those will be coming off pretty shortly. Yeah, certainly for the last 6 months I've been running the rods across this gap, tips up this way, and then I can secure them with the bungee as well. The bungee was what I had initially, but what I didn't like was the eyes of the rods resting on the ground, because the weight of a spinning reel will keep the eyes of the rods pointed downwards, and I think that just puts extra stress on that when it doesn't need to be there. You can see the Railblaza rod mounts either side, and again in those gunnel mounts, another one up the front there as well, which I use for a bar floodlight at night. I do quite a bit of night fishing or heading out early evening, but also I run a 7-inch hook reveal sounder with the transponder on the front of the trolling motor. What I prefer to do now is just spin the HDS Live around while I'm fishing off the casting deck. So I did opt for the multi-function tiller in the end. It took an extra month of waiting, but again, well worth it. I've got the trim and tilt on the grip, easy access to the gears, forward and reverse, and the ability to change different trolling mode through pressing the on-off button. I do carry 2 tanks normally because I tend to head upriver. I came off a kayak, a 10-kilometer round trip, took a while. I bought the Tinnie because I wanted to get much further up the rivers and explore, so it's quite easy just to throw 2 tanks in there if I'm going to do a longer trip. So they're 2 25-litre or I think 6-gallon tanks in the US. Also under here, here's my battery box. I run a hybrid lithium cranking battery from FBV Power. I really like that battery. It's essentially 3 or 4 big supercapacitors backed by a small lithium battery. So the supercapacitors do all the cranking effort, and the lithium battery is there just to trickle charge those up. It's a direct replacement for a normal cranking battery. It doesn't lose power over time. It's going to last many years, well worth the extra cost. I'll never have the issues of a lead acid battery. Also carry in the back here just a little cooler. I did make a shelf at the back across 2/3, so for the battery and for this. It's not attached to the back of the boat, it's attached to the back of the seat here with a bit of angle, and then braced in the back corner with this going to the ribs, so it doesn't touch the bottom of the boat at all. And Hoping, of course, that means no issues. The tanks themselves, they're just sitting on the base of the boat on a rubber mat, and I may get around to extending the back shelf across there at a future time. Yes, a comfy seat. I think it's called a Sirocco seat, Ocean South. Really, really good seat. The way I've mounted it is on a slide, and you can see what I can actually do is move this seat left and right. The reason for that is, depending upon the load on the boat, I can balance out. I can shift myself towards the centre line, or I can shift myself out to starboard, or wherever I like, whatever's comfortable. I have also put it on a swivel, so it means that I've got plenty of adjustability. I'm not set by drilling holes into the seat, into the thwart, and then getting it wrong. So I like that flexibility. Let's take a look at the electronics on the side here. You'll notice the switches there, a fuse box, and again, more Railblaza kit. So what do we got in here? All electronics come to this point. Power for the sonar. The second power switch is not actually hooked up at the moment. That was aimed for front sonar, the front fish finder. We've got nav lights, we've got anchor lights, and then we've got internal lights, and I run internal LED strip lights all around the front here, and they can change different colours, but yeah, good for nighttime fishing. And manual bilge pump at the back under that battery area that pushes out over the top here and out the back. This is a Railblaza, a utility coffee cup holder. A bunch of different stuff off here. A tether for the phone. Okay, so Railblaza mobile phone mount here. I have lost a mobile phone off the side, so I always tether up now. This is where I mount the fish finder, and being here, it can swivel around so I can see it from the front. On the back here, tied in, I've also got a NMEA network for the motor, and that comes up into the fish finder, so I can see my revs, my engine hours, all those sort of important things for the motor. That's just screwed directly in to the ribs. It's 9mm ply. All modifications on this boat have been done with 9mm marine ply, which is then sealed with a timber sealer, and then 3 coats of marine varnish, and then EVA foam over the top. You'll notice the EVA foam across a lot of the areas. That knocks out the shine. The Tinnie really does reflect the sun. Striped EVA foam for the deck. The reason I went for that colour, it was the cheapest on eBay. I think I've gone through 2 rolls of that particular colour on the boat, and then another 2 rolls of the black, or the charcoal so far. I replaced the carpet, the floor as well, with the EVA foam. What I found was, in taking up the carpet, these boards weren't sealed, so I ripped off the carpet, water seal, 3 coats of varnish, so all timber on here is fully locked in with 3 coats of varnish. Kill bag, and I guess the tools of the trade. Same approach, just screwed in to the ribs. And what have we got here? We've got the Rapala fish measure, an ideal spot for it because I can come out and measure fish on the deck. Fish grips, and they're tethered. I use the Ikijimi method of killing fish when I am going to take them. It means that I can kill the fish and just have them over the side, just bleeding into the water while I get the ice slurry ready. Pliers tethered, fish grips tethered. These are just some holsters I've made out of PVC pipe. A couple of knives screwed in there, so I've always got one handy. A spare pair of pliers just in case. An Ikijimi tool, which is just made out of an old Allen key, I think, that I've ground down the tip, and that's what I use to dispatch the fish. This pouch was aimed initially for sunglasses, but instead I carry scent in there. And off the back here, hook removers. Let's take a look up the front. The EVA foam, that makes it very comfortable. I solo launch, so I'll climb over the bow of the boat to get on when I'm getting on the trailer, so that's comfortable, and also it knocks off the sun reflection. You see the geospot motor, 65 pounds I think it is. On the front I've actually mounted the transponder for the Hook 7 reveal. I've put the transponder cable inside a split coiled gas, I think it was a high pressure hose. So that stays out of the way as I deploy it and bring it back in. And I run that across and put the Hook 7 in there. Power. Okay, I'll run the batteries for the motor and the electronics in here, and I'll show you the spot later. I actually run it up through and into a regulator, a 12 volt regulator. It's actually a 13.8 volt. So into Anderson plugs here, in and out, so I can always avoid it if I want. But the reason being, I'm running a 3S lithium ion battery, so fully charged, I bring out about 12.6 volts. It'll drop down into the 11 and a half volts, and that'll start this motor beeping about low voltage because it's expecting a lead acid battery. So that keeps voltage to the motor at a constant 13.8 volts. Railblaza here, just a little standoff for travel, so I can keep the motor secure on the roads. Finally, at the front here, the anchor. In the interest of weight and keeping this to be a rocket, I use a Cooper anchor. What's the benefits of a Cooper anchor? Great for sandy bottoms, very, very light, always a solid hold. I camp out quite often on the Tinnie, and I put my swag down the centre of the casting deck, turn that chest around, and I'm able to fit a full length swag on the boat, cook on the boat and everything else. So yeah, love the Cooper anchor, and again, it keeps the weight down, doesn't scratch anything, and an easy lightweight anchor. So let's have a look inside the casting deck. Weight was the core issue for me here. So this is made out of 1.6mm 40mm angle and 9mm marine ply, and I can say the 9mm marine ply, no issue at all with eddy bending, but that's because I've treated it well. I think I've done the right things in supporting it, and you'll see when I open it up the sort of bracing that I use for the hatch. So the hatch itself, I use the torsion box methodology, I guess you'd say, to keep it a bit stiff, or in this case 25mm aluminium angle riveted in from the top. Also use 12mm aluminium angle 1.6, I think it is, again around the sides. That's just to prevent it chipping. It's getting used a lot. EVA foam around the sides here. Now, plenty in here. Emergency box, fish finder, life jackets. This is where the battery goes. Power leads for the electronic and for the motor. This is where the other fish finder is. The big thing you'll notice in the middle of the deck is this cargo box. The reason I use the cargo box now, and it never comes off the boat, is for storage. What I found was I carry 4 to 5 Plano 3700 tackle boxes, and I just didn't have a good storage solution. By the time I've got the battery and the life jackets and everything else up there, it's just not convenient to have everything up there. Yeah, it's a cargo box. What I've done is I've injected the top lid, which is normally full of air, full of closed cell foam, expanding foam. So now it's an insulated box. I give it a bit of extra insulation just because I had it. What I'm trying to do for the harsh Australian summer is keep all my soft plastics nice and cool. You'll also notice on the inside, I had some foil board insulation lying around, and so I put that in as well, so it really keeps this box cool in summer. Waterproof boxes for consumables, video cameras and the like, large plastics and one for small plastics, gloves because it's been quite cold now in the Sydney winter, equivalent of a jet boil. It's how I keep my gulp, and here's where I keep the Planos terminal tackle for jigs, new hard bodies in that one, used vibes, I think, normal hard bodies that are being in use. If I ever do live baiting, it's there if I need it. Some more spares for the boat. How I keep fluoro, pair of Nipex bolt cutters there in case I ever do put a hook through me. So what do I like and hate about this boat? It is a great estuary inshore boat. It really doesn't handle chop very well at all. If you get wind against tide, it can be a pretty uncomfortable ride, but otherwise super stable up the front, no issue at all going right to the edges, no issue by myself getting up on plane, and when I'm on plane it comfortably cruises at 21 knots doing about 8.5 litres per hour, so I'd get 50 kilometres out of one tank, so I don't really have an issue day to day with fuel. It's a weapon for moving out of a kayak and into Tinnie. This really is the way to go. I'm happy for any questions, put them in the comments below. Take a look at my kayak modification video that I did. Not finished yet when it comes to modifications.